applicable both to your current award and will be applicable to your new awards. This is the part that's really only for your new awards. Under your new awards, the state has to identify a lot of different pieces of information. Included in that will be the applicable regulations for you. It also will include, they'll have to identify any indirect cost rate that you receive, and I believe I heard in the budget that there's a 5% capped rate for subgrantees. All of that will be identified by the state in the coming, in your next award term. Financial reporting has actually had a change, a little bit of a change. In the past, financial reporting was just that, right? It was a look at your finances, checking to make sure that your obligations and your unobligated balances and that you have those records, right? Now, and that you comply with the financial reporting requirements. So in Perkins, it would be your car. But now, there's been a new addition to your financial reporting, and it includes performance. This is different because previously, or in the old EGR rules, performance really isn't mentioned within your financial management system. Now, as a financial management system requirement, you have to make sure that there's reporting on performance. So here's what it says, and I'll accurate, current, complete disclosure of financial results on each award. Old, in accord with the financial reporting requirements of the grant. That's where it ended. New, now we have in accord with these time frames set by the OMB, as well as 328, which talks about performance reports, and it gives examples of performance metrics that have to be compared, and all of the stuff so it uses this cross-reference, and it pulls in this performance reporting. What we don't know, and what we haven't seen guidance on, is whether, obviously, you guys do a lot of performance reporting already, right? And that's coming from the U.S. Department of Ed, and that's coming from your program. And so, what we don't know is if the performance reporting that you have to do already is going to be deemed compliant with what the new regulations say you have to do as far as performance reporting. Because remember, these regulations apply not just to education grants, but to grants from the EPA and from, research grants, right? And research grants traditionally have never had to report on performance. Or Environmental Protection Agency grants, I mean, they're not necessarily reporting performance. A lot of our education grants already have performance metrics built in and performance reporting requirements. And so long as those, so what we have to do is sort of wait and see if the department comes out and says, you know what, the performance you already report for Perkins is compliant with the requirements in 200-328. So as long as you continue with your current reporting, well then you don't have to worry about this change. That's what we're hoping, right, that they come out and say. They could say, well, you know what, the regs changed. You have to add a new layer of reporting on performance that's over and above what we already do. But hopefully, this will be complied with based on your current performance reporting.
Thank you, Bonnie. On the reauthorization and taking a look at the demands of the metrics vision, whether or not performance is going to change, the indicators, etc. So, I'm just wondering if you have a heartbeat on what's going on in the reauthorization. Can you make it on that?
And so the question, just for everyone else, is, well, do we think performance measurements and indicators will change in reauthorization, and do we know where that stands and how that looks? My news for you is really there's no news on reauthorization, and in fact it's pretty much a back burner. I believe our legislative director has said that she's not anticipating a look at Perkins reauthorization for at least a couple years. The new Congress is in. There's a lot of focus, a lot of attention in the education realm surrounding ESEA, or No Child Left Behind, because of frustration by folks with certain assessment requirements, as well as, of course, the waivers that Duncan's group issued to a majority of the states. And every program is way behind on reauthorization. So we are not anticipating and haven't heard it talked about recently as really moving forward. So I just don't have a pulse on where it's going to be or when it's going to happen. It's just really not part of the conversation. Really, the conversation in Washington right now is fiscal issues, fiscal issues, fiscal issues, you know. So anticipate to continue under the same metrics, same process. So the performance metrics, as I mentioned, that are cross-referenced and that are included in 328, it's comparing accomplishments to objectives, explaining reasons if your goals were not met, identifying additional information on cost overruns, high-cost units, et cetera. You have to report on any significant developments, problems, delays, as well as favorable developments. And then, as I mentioned before, there is this provision that performance metrics can be waived, and we have yet to see if Ed will ask OMB to waive these performance metrics, basically because they already require performance reporting with all of their programs, and just continue to use the performance reporting that's already being done, which is what we anticipate. So the other financial management requirements, financial management system requirements, is with source documentation and accounting records. So we got our old rules and our new rules sort of combined on this slide. You need source documentation on federal awards, authorizations, obligations, unobligated balances, assets, expenditures, income. Interest is new, and it removed liabilities. So previously, the old rules that are applicable now have the word liabilities there. The new requirements took out liabilities and included interest instead. But really the key here is that you have source documentation that show me what your award is, and at any point in time, I can come in and ask you, what's your unobligated balance? What do you have obligated right now? Where are your expenditures? And not just a group line item, but can you really pinpoint down to me exactly what expenditures, what this money went for? Where's your documentation in support of that? When I talk about obligations versus expenditures, is that a clear distinction, or do you want to talk real quickly about what that distinction is? What do you think? Obligation an obligation is a commitment to pay, right? An expenditure, when I'm using the term here, I'm talking really about liquidation. I'm talking about the actual payment, when the check is cashed. When you write the check or when you sign the contract, you've committed to pay funds. So different types of expenditures have different obligation dates. A contract is obligated on the date that you have a binding written contract. So you can obligate quite a bit of funds just by signing a contract. Employees obligate their time and their salaries each day that they work. You might pay salary every 2 weeks, right? Your payroll goes out every 2 weeks. If I work this week, I've obligated my paycheck for this week, even if I don't get paid until the end of next week, right? It's not when I receive the payment, it's each day that I work, well, I've earned my salary, I've earned my benefits for that day. Other expenditures, so contracts are when the contract is signed, salaries when they work, and then travel is obligated when taken. This causes a lot of headaches for folks because we live in a day and age where you don't book your travel at the last minute, right? You book your travel well in advance. And to do so is actually the prudent thing to do. That makes you a reasonable person to get a better price. If you wait and book your travel the day that you're taking your travel, you're going to pay an exorbitant fee. So what ends up happening is you have this weird issue where you have technically expended the funds, liquidated the funds, before they've obligated. Because you don't obligate travel until travel is taken. And that makes sense maybe for hotels where, you know, you have like a